Okay, this is going to be an introduction to blocks, and I'll try to cover as much as I can in this one video. So, first thing I want to do is point out that most places will have a folder called blocks or libraries or something. So I'm going to create that file, and you can see it's empty. So we're just going to pay attention to that as we go. So here's my AutoCAD, and let's see. I'm just going to come back to the folder as we need it. So I'm in a drawing. Some of you may have seen it before, and I'm going to type insert. And you can see there's already something listed in there. So you can see there's nothing else in the list. So there's a couple of different ways you can do blocks. So I can create blocks so that they're going to end up and show up in my library here. Or I can create blocks so that they just show up in my drawing here, and they won't show up in my library. So sometimes you have a need where you're in a single drawing and you just need something that you're probably not going to use again for some other project. But for anything that's ever going to be repeated, you want to put that, you want to create a block, and you want to put that in your blocks folder. So here, let's take a look at what I got here on this drawing. So I've got a desk, I've got this chair, you can see it's all different pieces, and I got a desk, you can see that it's different pieces, and this is supposed to be a computer, and here's a monitor, and here's a keyboard and mouse, right? So I have all these different pieces, and ideally, like you can see, these are all like different pieces. Now, I think when I created this lab, it was for like showing people how to copy stuff around, how to use the mirror command. But there's a better way. So once I create this, let's say I'm just going to need this chair, right? So I'm going to use this chair from time to time because I'm in some sort of architectural firm, and I want to make a block out of it. So that's simple. I'm just going to use the W block command. So it's a right block. And I'm going to get the right block dialog box. So what am I going to do with that? So the first thing I want to do with that is I want to change where it's going and what it's called. So I'm going to tell it I want to put it in my documents, in my blocks folder, and I want to call it, let's say, office chair. Now here you can use some long file names, but you want to use some standard naming conventions. If I had some dimensions, I might give it some dimensions. If it was a wide chair, I might put like office chair wide, or just office chair is what I got. So I'm going to save that, and it hasn't done anything yet. So my base point. You can just specify that anytime you insert this chair, it's going to insert from 0, 0. But I don't know where 0, 0 is on this drawing out here. It could be anywhere. It's probably like way down to the left somewhere. So I don't want to do that. I want to say I want to pick a base point. And I'm just going to pick like right here on the back of the chair. And if you want to get technical, you could say I want to pick the midpoint so it's exactly touching the chair. Then I want to specify what is involved in this chair. So I'm going to select objects, and I'm just going to kind of pick and make sure I'm only picking that chair. And I'm going to say enter. Now I'm all ready to go. And if I take one more look at my blocks folder, and I say, come back over here to AutoCAD, and I say OK, and I go back to my blocks folder, I now have a new file called office chair. This is just a regular AutoCAD file. So if I were to open that up, there's my chair. And something also to pay attention to, if you've got your chair and it was assigned to any layers, anything that you bring in will bring in those layers with it. So it's important you have proper layer management. So that's how to make a block. So you can add anything you want to this, and you can create blocks all day long. So now say you wanted to include like this whole workstation. Or maybe you just wanted to make like a computer block or whatever you wanted to do. So I'm going to do a W block, pull up the right block. Now you want to be as clean as possible. So like right here, I know there's 2 lines under there. And if I just use like an erase command and I select both those lines, you can see 2 found. So you don't want that. You want to be as clean as possible because you're going to be using this on lots and lots of projects. So I'm going to say W block again. And I'm going to say, now it's already going to my blocks folder. So I'm going to say workstation. Ooh, you know what I could do? I could say like L workstation with chair. Yeah, that'd be good. It's a little long, but it'll work fine. So then I'm going to say base point. Now you want to pick someplace pretty handy, right? So on something like this, it's going to be like an endpoint. And I'm just going to pick that endpoint. So I've picked my base point. Now select objects. I'm going to select all of this stuff, but I'm not going to go over that line. So I'm going to select all that, and then I'm going to pick one click so I don't get that second line under there, and say enter. And that's it. So now when I go back to my blocks, I now have an L-shaped workstation with a chair. If I open that up, I now have other layers that it brought with me. See, so there's something wrong with this drawing right away because there's no door on a desk. You know, I have equipment, I have hidden equipment. I think this is hidden, this computer desk here, and I have much furniture and the chair. There's no door in here, so it's not a very clean block. But you can see it just separates the whole thing out. They're all separate pieces, and I've got a separate file. Now, why is this useful? So this is useful because I can now go into my drawing. Say I needed a workstation up here. I can say insert. Now what's important? There's nothing here now. I'm going to browse, and I'm going to browse to my blocks folder and my L-shaped workstation. And where do you want to put it? I want to specify the insertion point on the screen. I want it to be full scale because you know I took it right out of the drawing. And I'm going to say OK. Now you also have this option here to say explode. Not going to explode it. Not yet. So sometimes never. So I'm just going to say OK. Now you can see I'm dragging this thing around. And I want to insert it, say, on the end point here. There it is. I can use this thing over and over and over again. And the big advantage here, not only do I have a reusable block, when I click on it, it's all one piece. Now, I could explode it, use the explode command, click it, hit enter, and break it back down to its individual lines. Or you can do that when you do your insert. You can say, now this is the last thing I inserted. So it's going to be in there, and you can see that I now have L-shaped workstation in my insert name in that box. So I'm going to say OK, and I'm just going to insert right here, and you can see it's all broke down into its individual lines and stuff. So you can explode it, but that's not the big advantage. The big advantage is that it is a block. So now that I have this block, and you see that it has L-shaped workstation with a chair in this list, every time I insert this right here, I don't want to explode it, it's going to insert from within this drawing. It doesn't go out to the blocks file over and over and over again. Now that it's in the drawing, I can insert it from within the drawing. Now see, watch this. If I go back to my blocks, right, now I'm going to open up this L-shaped workstation, and I don't know, maybe it's no longer an L. I'm just going to trim this up and erase this out. Now it doesn't make any sense that it's an L-shaped workstation, but that's fine. You're going to get to see what happens. So I'm going to save this. Save. And I'm going to save it as L-shaped workstation. Save. And I'm going to say yes. So you can see right here, that is not L-shaped. I'm going to come back to my drawing. Now, these are no longer blocks, so let's just ignore them for now. But this is a block. So watch this. If I say insert, now I'm going to go to my list, L-shaped workstation with a chair, and I insert it. You're going to see that same block because that's coming from within the drawing. But if I say insert again, but I browse for it, say I want to browse for that L-shaped workstation, and you can see here in the preview there's no L in there, it's just a straight desk. I'm going to say open, I'm going to get a message. Where do you want to put it? Here's my message. Hey, this is different than what you have in the drawing. Do you want to redefine it or don't redefine it? Well, if I redefine it, what you're going to see, I insert my new one here, you're going to see it update my other blocks. So if you had a block on all your drawings that changed a little bit and you need to go change it, you could just reinsert it, redefine it, and it would change the whole drawing. That'd be great. So that's the blocks. Now, you could create these from, say, a new file. So if I were to be like new, I don't want to select a template. I just want to be like file, new, drawing. Do I want to use a template? Yeah, I do. So, what's the file? This one right here. This is a part I was working on a while ago for some other class, and I was just slopping some dimensions on there, so they don't make much sense, so I'm just going to delete them. And let's say you wanted to make, like, I'm currently working on a project, and I find out that I need something new, and I've already drawn it. So that could be like, maybe I want to make like a piece of text, and I'm going to justify it at middle center. I'm just going to click, and I'm going to make it 0.125. This is a metric. And I'm going to say letter A. You see it right there? And I'm just going to click off of it. Now I'm going to draw a circle based on the insert point of that. Great, look at that. Okay, so I've got this bubble, right? And I want to use this for like a bubble notation. So maybe I could use one of the leaders. I kind of like to use the quick leader command and bring it up, turn my ortho on, bring it over, and move this. Now there's several different ways I've seen people do this. You could create it just like this. I've seen the bubble, just the bubble without the leader. So I think that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to create it without the leader. But for example, you would see that would be touching. So the leader would be touching, but I'm going to come back to that later. I don't need to fiddle with that. So I have this block on the screen. You can use a command called block. Now this is a little different than the W block. So if I use the block, you see I have a block definition window. This is not a write block, meaning I'm not going to write it to my file. So if I come back to this, it's never going to show up here. Okay, so my base point, I'm going to, let's see, pick my base point, and I'm just going to say I want it to be on the quadrant here, right there. All right, select my objects, hit enter, and behavior. Now I'm not going to go over annotative in this tutorial, but we're going to get to annotative later in the class. So that becomes real important later. So that's it, right? You see there's nothing in there. I'm going to say okay. Is that what I want to do? Did I get everything? Base point, select my objects, convert to block. That's important. If I don't convert it to a block and I use the retain, it's going to leave that circle with the A, which would be fine. So I've seen a lot of people do this a lot of different ways. So I'm done. Say okay. Oh, the name must be. Oh, I didn't type a name. So I'm going to call this bubble-a. Say okay. Okay, so now when I click on it, you can see that it's a block. And when I go to do my insert, you're going to see I now have bubble A listed there. So I can just keep using that over and over again. And as long as it's the letter A, in my description of what A is never changes, then I can just go in here and I can say like Q leader and pick, say, somewhere near, whatever you want to point it to, north of 1. And then that's ready to go. So I could say insert, and I'm inserting my bubble A from within the drawing, and it's on that left quadrant, right? So I can just put it right on the end point of that line. And that's how that works. You can do this for anything. You can do this for windows, doors, any reusable thing that you're going to have inside of a drawing. So you saw that we did it with the desk. You saw how we made the block, we redefined the block, and we created a right block file. And then you saw how we created a small bubble, created a block within the drawing itself, because see, like if I come back here to my workstation, where is it, my classroom, and I say insert, there's not going to be any bub A, right? And if I browse for it, it didn't save it to my folder. So you saw how we created a block inside of the drawing. And that is an introduction to how to make blocks.